29, make channels for the streams of love. Please prepare your body for singing, rise in body or in spirit as you're so moved, and join in the singing. Our second song this morning is in the turquoise hymnal, number 1064, Blue Boat Home, hymn number 1064. And our third song this morning is number 1074, Turn the World Around. There's a little enthusiasm in the room. We'll be doing the extended arrangement, so watch me down here and sing with the choir and have a good time. Here we go.
I'm Jay Tiffenbaum, and I would like to invite you to greet one another. Please greet one another. She's excited you're back on. I'm down here. You're excited? They're back.
For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. May our many sparks meet and merge in communion of heart and soul.
I'd like to invite you to join your hearts and minds in a spirit of worship. Once upon a time, well, exactly 249 years ago, a man broken by failure and grief, poverty, and a close escape from prison left the ports and harbors he had known. John Murray sailed from England across the Atlantic westward into the unknown. I can imagine him on the brig, which is a big sailing ship called the Hand in Hand, plying the starry sea, the wind filling the sails, urging him on. I can imagine him leaning over the edge of the brig in wonder, casting questions into the deep. Would he ever find safe harbor? Would he ever have companions and kindred traveling souls again? Would his heart ever heal? Would his life have meaning? Would the infinite sea offer him any answers? So John Murray didn't expect anyone to greet him when he got to the port of New York. But he didn't even get there. He got stuck, or the boat got stuck on a sandbar in a nice, safe harbor in New Jersey, but there was no port there. There was nothing there. And they were running out of food on the boat because they thought they were going to be in port. And so the sailors rowed John Murray to land and said, see if you can find us some provisions, some food, so that we're not going to starve to death while we're waiting for the tide and the wind to all change at the same time. So he kind of looks around and he sees a little church and he sees a little house and he sees a man in there. So he knocks on the door, says, hello, I'm John Murray. And says, oh, I'm Thomas Potter. Welcome. And a very nice, welcoming man greets him. He feels really welcomed. And he finds out that he says to him, it looks like there's a little church here. Are you the minister? And he says, no. I'm a farmer, fisherman, whatever I can do to make a living. He says, but I built this church like 20 years ago because I know that someday a minister is going to come who's going to preach about the love of God. I'm just sick of hearing people preach about hate and stuff like that, going to hell. I want to hear about love. John Murray didn't say anything. He's quiet. And the next day, Thomas Potter takes him in the horse and buggy to town to get some provisions. And he looks at John Murray and says, I got this feeling that you're the preacher. You're the preacher I've been waiting for. John Murray's like, no way. And he maybe protested a bit much because he had a secret. His secret was that he had been a preacher in England, and he had preached about hellfire and hate, and then he was kind of converted to believing that God was a God of love. And he changed all his preaching, and unfortunately, people stopped coming to listen. And he decided that was the beginning of all the bad things that started happening to him, including almost ending up in debtor's prison because he ran out of money. And he had promised himself he was going to start a whole new life in the colonies. And he was going to never preach again. But Thomas Potter was kind of a pain in the neck. He kept saying, no, you're the one. You're going to preach on Sunday. And he wore Murray down. Murray finally says, okay. If you'll stop harassing me, I'm sure he didn't use the word harass, but if you stop harassing me, I will preach on Sunday in your little church if the boat is still there, because if the tide rises at the same time the wind blows, I'm out of here. I got to go to New York. So Sunday morning comes. Murray kind of says, okay, I said I would do this. I better do this. He walks into this tiny little church. It is packed because everybody for miles around had thought Thomas Potter was a little crazy for telling everybody for 20 years that someday somebody was going to come, and they wanted to see if this was really true. Did this finally happen? And Murray got up there and he just preached about love, probably for about 2-3 hours, because the next day, once they got going, they got going. And everybody was moved. Their hearts were opened. And when he was done, he started walking down the aisle to say goodbye to people. And the sailors came in and they said, Murray, gotta go. The tide and the wind have changed. We're on our way. Well, Thomas Potter ran after him and he said, please stay. Please stay. Look, you have a congregation. You have a church. You're wonderful. Please stay. And he said, no, I need to think about this for a couple minutes. I'll go to New York and think about it. Which he did, but people started asking him to preach when they heard what he had done in New Jersey, and he started traveling all over the colonies preaching the love of God. And every time he went through New Jersey, he stopped and found safe harbor with his dear friend, Thomas Potter. It was so.
So I have a story also about water, closer to home. It came 25 years ago, right here in this space, where this congregation celebrated its very first water communion. It was something that had been started by a group of women somewhat earlier, and we'll get to that part in another part of the story. But 25 years ago here in this congregation, many people were experiencing some great turmoil and some deep pain. And they were looking for a way to bring people back together again. There were some people who no longer came because they couldn't bear the burden of that turmoil and that pain. There was a group of women, some who came, some who no longer came, who met regularly at one of their homes. And they started talking about how they could start some healing. What might they do? And someone had heard about this thing called a water ritual. And they enlisted the help of the temporary minister who was here at the time. And they started planning this thing. And they made up a list of everyone they could think of who had been hurt and who had left. And they wrote a letter, and they explained this water ritual, and they invited everyone to come back for what they called a homecoming. Well, a great many of these women who received this letter, and men as well, the thing here is that I'm telling a story based on some of the voices that I have heard from that time. It happens that they're all women. And I want to tell you in their own words how they felt when they received that letter. They thought that it was wonderful, lovely, an active reaching out, intentional, welcoming, a genuine invitation. And so they came to that very first water communion, which we will talk more about as the morning goes on.
Nibe gizage chimo giz. Like I knew this yesterday. We are humans still. Nibe gizage igo gimi gwechawe nimigo gijawe nimigo. These words are in the Ojibwe language. They're in the musical insert, but I'm going to teach them to you call and response style. They mean, water, we love you. We thank you. We respect you. So repeat after me. Nibe. Giza. Ge-igo. Nibe giza ge-igo. Nibe giza ge-igo. Gimi gwechawe. Gimi gwechawe. Nimigo. Gijawe. Nimigo. Listen. Nibe. Sing that. Nibe. Gizageigo. Gizageigo. Gimi gwechawe. Gimi gwechawe. Nimigo. Giza gwecha wenimigo. Giza gwecha wenimigo. Listen one more time. Giza gwecha wenimigo. Giza gwecha wenimigo. Good. Gijawe, Gijawe, Nimigo, Nimigo, Gijawe, Gijawe, Nimigo, Nimigo. So we'll do each line one more time. Nibe gizageigo, nibe gizageigo, gimi gwecha wenimigo, giza gwecha wenimigo. Gijawe nimigo, Gijawe nimigo, Giva nibe, Gijawe nigo, Gimigwechawe nimigo. Gijawe nimigo. Listen to the last line. Gijawe nimigo. Gijawe nimigo. One more time, the whole thing. Nibe Gijawe go. Gimi gwechawe nimigo. Gijawe nimigo.
Good morning. My name is Dara Gouch-Lewis. I'm a youth of this congregation, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here in the sanctuary and those joining us online to worship this morning. In order to reach a wider community than those able to be physically present on Sunday morning, our services are live streamed on YouTube and Facebook. Before I continue, let me remind you to silence your cell phones. As Unitarian Universalists, our spiritual paths vary, but in this congregation, we have made a covenant together. We affirm our interdependence, celebrate our differences, and work for justice. We deepen our relationships as we create a compassionate, welcoming community, nurture spiritual growth, and act on our values in the broader world. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors worshiping with us this morning. We ask you to wear the paper name tags because it helps us recognize you as someone we'd like to meet. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you may find it here. Whether you are new to Unitarian Universalism or visiting from another UU congregation, we invite you to stop by the welcome table after the service to have questions answered. People become members of this congregation by signing the membership book and supporting the church with their time and finances. If you are considering joining the church, please talk to our assistant minister, Denise Gouch. Following the service, we hope everyone will enjoy coffee and fellowship in the social area, where you will also find information about current opportunities for engagement and reflection. There are many announcements in the weekly bulletin, which I hope you will take home and read, and I've been asked to highlight these ones. Now is the time to register for all things faith development: Sunday school, youth group, Our Whole Lives for kindergarten first graders and for 4th through 5th graders, covenant groups, and nonviolent communication practice groups. Visit the faith development table in the social hall to ask questions and to sign up. You are invited to join Dinners for Nine to share a monthly potluck dinner with a consistent group of couples and singles in the comfort of each other's homes in order to know folks here at Fun better in a small group setting and eat at the same table. What could be better? Ask questions and sign up at the Dinners for Nine table in the social hall on Sundays, now until September 15th. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christopher Cotton, and I'm a member of this church. I'm going to talk about NVC. NVC stands for Nonviolent Communication. For me, it's a way to look at how I observe the world and communicate with others. There's a book on NVC, but I want to emphasize that these are practice sessions. And for me, who I want to practice with was how I talk with Evelyn and Liam, who are my two kids. So yes, I got a cheer from Liam over there. In one session, I said, when I put the kids to bed, I'm having problems, when they don't want me to leave, but then they're not actually trying to go to sleep. And I'm very frustrated by this whole process of not going to sleep, but not actually wanting me to leave either. And so in the session, someone actually said, well, what do you think they're actually really feeling or needing? And I said, you know what? I'm actually really not sure. So the next time it happened, I actually asked Liam, and then as he started to tear up, he said, I just feel sad when you leave, and I don't want to be left alone. And in that moment, I really heard for the first time, what he wanted, and my heart melted. And I said, well, that's not really how I want to do it. And so I finally got how it was for them, and we were actually able to work out a way where we could actually have it work out, where we all got our needs met in the night. So NVC has really helped me when I actually practice it. So I invite you to come practice and learn with us in the NVC practice group. Thanks.
Okay, did some of you notice that there's a map? Some of you were coloring it. A map of the world. Our blue boat home here, I guess you have to go like this to make it a little rounder. So I don't know, can anybody point out where England is on here? It's kind of vague because it's small, but an idea where England is, where John Murray was from? Just point, hold it up and show me where you think it is. Yeah, you want to show me? It's over here by Europe, on one side of the Atlantic, right? Okay, and then he sailed across the Atlantic over here, and it says North America, but the colonies are kind of like here on the edge. Okay, so at the same time that John Murray was traveling around, there was a port north of New York, just a little north up the coast, and it's called Gloucester. And there were a lot of sailing people there, people that they built big clipper ships, they sailed all over the world. So look, they would go, in those days it was pretty hard, but they would sail all the way down around South America and up here, which was still not, that was still not America. It was still tribal people living there, or they would go across and they go up here, north, or around Africa. Sometimes they even went to Asia, India and Asia, very rarely, but once in a while they did. And they got really confused because they kept meeting people in all these faraway places that had different religions that they'd never heard of, different tribal religions, or they were Muslim, and every once in a while they'd meet somebody who was Hindu, and they would say, they were good people. And that confused them because they had been taught in the Puritan church at home in Gloucester that the only good people, the only people worthy of love were a very small group of very good Christians. And that just wasn't their experience. There were good people all over the world of all different religions. So they actually formed a study group, a lot of these seafaring families, to figure out why this was so confusing. And they read about universalism, which said that God loved everyone. that love was God, and that didn't matter what religion you were. And that made sense to them. So when they heard that John Murray was preaching around, they invited him to come to Gloucester, and they said to him, "We want you to stay." Now, this is 4 years later. He spent 4 years of preaching through the colonies. And so this time he thought, well, maybe I will stay here. It's a nice city. There's a lot of people here. They're really enthusiastic. And they really understand what this universalist message about love is about. And in those days, there was no separation of church and state. When you paid taxes, those taxes supported the church, the Puritan church in town. It was called the Meeting House. And so they went to court, and they challenged that, and they won the court case. So they were able to, they established for the first time that people could defer their taxes and pay for another religion. And they started to build their own church. But then the Revolutionary War came. Now, these were all ardent supporters of freedom from England. So they sent John Murray to be the chaplain for the Revolutionary Army. And then when they came back in a great celebration of the fact that they are now a new nation, they started to build their church. He married a widow in Gloucester, Judith Sargent, who was a writer. She was part of that revolutionary spirit, and she wrote for the rights of women and good education for all the children. She also wrote the first Universalist catechism, which is kind of weird to read because it really is like a catechism. But anyway, she wrote that. And together, they ministered, spread the word of God is love throughout the nation. Now, when they built this church, it has a big tower on it. And on that tower is a navigational guide for sailors sailing into that harbor so they'll be safe. And to this day, that tower is considered a beacon that you have come to a safe and welcoming port. And that is so.
So this time we go back about 45 years. And there was a woman, her name was Lucille Shuck Longview. And she was a Unitarian Universalist. She had been to a number of assemblies and conventions and had come to the conclusion that religion, including her beloved Unitarian Universalism, had a big responsibility in the system of sexist oppression. And what she did was she went home and she wrote a resolution that went to the UUA General Assembly. As a result of that resolution, which was approved, they launched all kinds of things to look at male-gendered language in hymnals, at that kind of an attitude in services in congregations. And you'll have heard the stories, or maybe in some cases even participated when, as I hear it, people went through all the hymnals here and started just changing the language. So the women persevered, they persisted. And it came a point where they made some decisions about how they wanted to do things. They wanted to create a new kind of worship as well, one that was welcoming, one that honored their female perspective on life and on the world. And they had a larger impact than many of us today know about. In fact, the principles and purposes were changed largely as a result of what they put in motion. And that principle that so many of us love so well about the interconnected web of all existence of which we are a part came as a result of this activity. The other thing that they did was that they created a water ritual, an inclusive, welcoming thing for everyone. And I cannot do better than their words, and so I'm going to read them to you. They use water because water is more than simply a metaphor. It is elemental and primary, calling forth feelings of awe and reverence, acknowledging that the ocean is considered by many to be the place from which all life on our planet came. It is the womb of life, and that amniotic waters surround each of us prenatally. We now realize that this worship service was for us a new story of creation. We choose water as our symbol of empowerment. And here are some words that were spoken during that first water ritual. Making our way like rivers from places distant and near, we come together to give shape to a new spirituality. For there is no theology that calls women to strength rather than to support the strength of others, that calls women to action rather than to passivity, that calls women to full expression rather than to meek acceptance. Recognizing that we must question every box, every definition, every assignment from an authority outside of our own beings, so that we can create and recreate for ourselves the rituals and symbols that give meaning to us. So we come together to question, to hear, to share, to speak, to inspire, and to celebrate through new rituals, knowing that our energy and our love are transforming. Celebrating now our connectedness, we choose water as our symbol of empowerment. As rivers in cycle release their waters and regain new beginnings, so do we cycle. For us as women, these beginnings are powerful, but not easy. But still, we come to create and to celebrate and to live by the only spirituality worthy of our devotion, a spirituality that uplifts, empowers, and connects.
Nibe gizage go Gimi gwechawe nimigo Gijawe nimigo Nibe gizage go Gimi gwechawe nimigo Gijawe nimigo Nibe gizage go Gibi gwechawe nimigo Gijawe nimigo
At this time, our offering will be received. This is the last week that we're sharing the plate with the Palmer Lecture Series. You can read about that in your order of service. You can also see in there how to give electronically if you would like to. If you are online and would like to give electronically, please find instructions at firstunash.org/ways to give. And I want to thank you so much for your ongoing generosity. the map for those of you who like maps. So can you figure out where Tennessee is on there, or Nashville even, right? So that's kind of inland, that's kind of away from the ocean, but we're a port on a river, aren't we? I mean, Nashville was built because there's a landing here on the Cumberland River. And guess what? All rivers go to the sea. The Cumberland River doesn't go directly to the sea. It goes to the Ohio River. Then it goes to the Mississippi River. Then it goes down where? Where does it go from the Mississippi River? The Gulf of Mexico. And then look at that's down here. Let's see. That's down here. And look at it as it goes out. Where does it go? Back to the Atlantic Ocean, doesn't it? Okay, so I'm a little sad today, I have to confess, because this is my very last water communion with you. I have done 15 water communions with you, and at the end of this school year that you just started, I am like the river flowing to the sea. I am going down and up to guess where? Gloucester, Massachusetts, where John Murray's church will be and Judith Sargent Murray's church will be where I go to church. That's where I go when I visit there. It still has that beacon, having people come into the harbor. And so today, I am thinking a lot about how water takes us back through history, connects us to people long ago, people 25 years in this church, people moving forward. And I'm thinking about Unitarian Universalists all over this country celebrating water communion today. Because what does this mean, water communion? It means we're all connected. Even when we feel so far apart, we are all connected.
So going back to 1994, about 25 years ago, exactly 25 years ago, actually, and that first water communion here, people came. In the spirit of that letter, they came. And they brought their water, and they mingled it with the water of others. And they saw that everything went in there, the joys, the pain, the lifetime of experience. Nothing was pushed aside. Nothing was swept under a rug. Nothing. The water was not flushed away. It was all there in a beautiful bowl, just as we have today. Just as this sanctuary, this beautiful sanctuary, contains all of us. And they watched that, and they knew that that water containing so much of their lives and their lives together was going on to do other things, to offer sustenance to the earth itself, to bless children during child dedications. And as you'll learn today, we are still adding to that tradition. And so people saw the culmination of the intent that had been put in motion with that letter, with that bringing the water communion to this community. And they left, again, some of the words that I heard from some of these people, they left feeling a healing, feeling gratitude, feeling that it was a chance. It was taking a chance, but it was worth that chance. And as they left, they were glad that they had come, and many came again, and some still do today. So now I want to ask you to sit quietly and think and perhaps share with someone near you. A time when you were hurt and needed support. I invite the choir to do this too. Or perhaps you were the person who offered the support. How did this feel? How did it go? How did it feel to be in such community with others?
Liebe, Gisane higo, Gimi Gwechawe Nimigo, Gijawe Nimigo, Liebe.
So one thing I've learned here is that there's one thing we can never do at Water Communion, and that's not sing Blue Boat Home. Right? How many of you like Blue Boat Home, right? Okay. So, but there's one line that always makes me very sad. It's when you say, when it's never harbor nor port have I known. And that's not been my experience. I feel very fortunate. I found a harbor, a safe harbor, and a port, a home here in this congregation and in this city. So I feel very lucky. But I also know that I've found ports in other places that I haven't even been very long. For instance, when I was in Northeast India visiting the Unitarians there, and that's the farthest away from home I've ever been in my life, halfway across the world. And it's a very different culture. They're tribal culture. They're very rural. They're very agricultural. Really, everything they did was different. And one day, Albania, who was 10, started singing a song, and they have a slightly different scale. It's more of a Eastern Asian scale. And at first I couldn't recognize it, but I listened and I realized, are you singing Blue Boat Home? And she said, yes, that's our favorite song in Sunday school. We love that song. And you know, I felt like we had created a home by singing that song together, which we did over and over and over again. And that became a safe port for me. And those people were my traveling companions. So I look at this and I think of all the places that all of us have found safe ports. Maybe all over the world. I've found safe ports in India and in Turkey and in Romania and in Scotland and in California and in Omaha, Nebraska. And then I start thinking about all the people that have been here and had to move. And they're in Chicago and Washington, D.C. and Canada and California, and they found safe ports here and then in those places far away. So I would like all of you to think about on this big, beautiful planet where there are ports and harbors, where you have traveling companions. And in that way, I do believe together we are traveling on our blue boat home. So we come from water, we go down to the water, we sail upon the waters, and you all know we are water mostly. And today we celebrate our annual ingathering of community by mingling water that we have each gathered from places near and far. We begin this water communion by inviting you to go to one of the 4 bowls. There's 2 on either side of that long table back there. You can see Diana and Denise. And then there's back here by that door, you can see Dara, and then I'll be down here in front to your right. And I'm inviting you to pour a little water into the bowl, name its origins out loud if you want, or what it means to you. There is a pitcher of water by each bowl. If you do not have water, please feel free to pour some of that water from the pitcher into the bowl and name a watery place that has meaning to you. Maybe a place where you have traveling companions, some other part of the world. And I invite you all to add some water in one of these bowls so that we can all reconnect as one beloved community. I invite you to do so now. Gloucester.
Holy water, holy water, holy water, holy water.
We bring waters from the four directions, water from the north, from icy seas and frozen lands, water that commingles and is part of the water of the globe. Bless these waters, that they may be healing waters. May the waters make us new.
Holy water, holy water, holy water, holy water.
We bring waters from the four directions, water from the south, from summer showers and warm lagoons, water that commingles and is part of the globe. Bless these waters, that they may bring us back to ourselves. May the waters make us whole.
Holy water, holy
We bring waters from the four directions, water from the east, from monsoons and sacred pools, water that commingles and is part of the water of the globe. Bless these waters, that they may quench our thirst, now and evermore. May the waters make us free. We bring waters from the four directions, water from the west, from dry places, water especially precious for its scarcity, water that commingles and is part of the water of the globe. Bless these waters, for they restore us to community once again. May the waters make us one.
I'd like to invite you all to process as those of us who are worship leaders lead you to our columbarium right outside. We'll have a couple doors, one in the back and this one open. You will be able to hear what we say if you prefer to stay inside, and the camera lens will follow us outside so that people online can see. So we're going to ask, Sally's going to help make sure there's a sight line after people join in the back. I invite you all to follow us. This way back? Okay. Okay. This water gathered from the four corners of the earth, mingled together as a sign of our beloved community's annual celebration of our communion with others, has been transformed into our own holy water. We use this water to remind us that we are connected by our common bonds, for we all come from the water, we all live in the water, and we all go back to the water to turn the world around. And I know somebody has the microphone to give Denise. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, not yet. Marguerite's next, but I just want to make sure we're ready. Okay.
First, let us save some of this water for the sacred times we celebrate that we come from the water when we are born. I'll save the water in a vase in which we'll place the roses that we use during child dedication in the years ahead. May this water reconnect us to the waters from which we come.
Okay, that's good.
Next, let us save some of this water for the sacred times when we share our most profound joys and sorrows with this beloved community. I will save the water in this bowl, which we use for sharing those joys and concerns during Sunday worship services. May this water reconnect us to one another every week.
Now let us pour the rest of the water on this ground, the site of our church columbarium, where so many of our community members are laid to rest at their deaths. As David pours this water, we will read the names of those who are interred here. May this water reconnect us to those who have preceded us in death. Would you like to put your bowl down there for a minute? You don't have to, because you need to hold the, I want you to hold. Yeah, no, just, yeah, let's do that. Gustav Dobrin, Douglas George Polk, Sophie Dobrin, Sidney Paul Kolowick, Charles Alden Dana, W. Herbert Hollingsworth,
Mary Lillian H. Ebbets, Pauline Cohen Berger, Ian Gregory Smith, Julia M. Barnes, Michael Tatarin, William Griffin,
Barbara Dana Holmes, Mildred Benson, Dorothea Griffin, Stanley Ray Jernigan, Winifred Smith Lyserson, Robert Adam Lovelace, Elizabeth Ions Harris,
Jean Williams Morgan, Aaron Hiller, Sean Lennox Conklin, John Floyd Smith, Joe Moore, Lawrence T. Ratner,
Dan Michael Tatarin, Lori Stevens, David Page Barnes, Eve Ansoff, Joe DeBona, Dewey W. Grantham,
Raymond C. Norris, Barbara Stacy Dana, Joy Dedman Gasta, Nancy Alina Cushman, Penelope Mountfort, Francis Crowley, Jace Birch,
Caitlin Kristen Lee, Joan Pratt Tillman, Carol Sue Alley, Robert Eldon Canwright Sr., Ing Ming Lin, Bao Ching Lin, Dwayne Barry Wyatt,
Michael J. Sitzman, Tara Lee Driscoll, John Robert Newbrough, Harry Howe Ransom, Phyllis Phillips, Leslie Phillips,
Ralph Jerry Kazort, James Monroe Williams, Suzanne Peterson Reed, Rusty Walther, William S. Shipping, Mary Frances Watts,
Barbara Burr Curlis, Dorothy I.T. Conkin, Cornelia Faust, Nancy A. Ransom, Sheldon E. Rosenberg, Virginia B. Grantham, Joy Moya Chipping.
We come from water, and to water we will return, like these drops of water falling to this earth.
The words to the chalice extinguishing can be found at the bottom of your order of service. We
Extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We come from water. We live in water. Let us go from this place back to the waters that flow through the rest of all our lives and turn the world around. This service is over. Let our service continue once again, refreshed and renewed.